On this terrible night, there was a tragedy. The car crashed into a barrier, crushed like a cardboard box. Pouring rain whipped through the asphalt. The hero was not going to intervene. He did not even want to look in that direction. But it was this lady that caused the disaster. The boss commanded Lu Yuve as an insignificant servant and forced the rescuers, as if he was obliged to understand her problems. The guy who was drawn into this situation had no choice but to intervene in what was happening. The young man bent over her body, trying to understand whether she was alive. The director, cold and impregnable, now lay unconscious, all in blood and dirt. Perhaps in this way he hoped to earn money glasses that he was extremely necessary. Meanwhile, something incredible in the sky happened. A bright beam cut through dense clouds, illuminating a gloomy night. The radiance rushed to the girl, enveloped her and dissolved in the whole body. And at that moment, Lu Juve was disturbed by another. She remained his 2,000 yuan if this tyrannical woman would die, who would return them to him. Nevertheless, not light interrupted his thoughts, and not fear, but her lips, unexpectedly soft and warm. The director opened her eyes and began to realize what was happening around. Although it was not easy, there was no gratitude in her gaze. Apparently, this impudent searches for death, she said coldly. And the hero realized, even after everything that happened, and standing on the verge of life and death, the boss still looks at him from top to bottom. Suddenly, the young man was alert. When the sound of the system was heard from somewhere, she said that he was shocked by the empress and congratulated a golden fist, which could be used 3 times. The young hero could not understand which empress was talking about. Was he really so tired that he began to have hallucinations? Meanwhile, the boss, who had already recovered, began to move, looking around. The lady noticed that she did not seem to be respected. The next second, Mao Ke jumped sharply and, without hesitation, grabbed the guy by the neck. Anger filled her voice when she stated that she was obliged to punish him for disrespectful attitude. The young man tried to justify himself, suggesting that the boss may have hit her head, and she urgently needs medical care. But at that moment, Mao Ke was surprised to find that she could not use her true power. The guy noticed that it seems that the boss was not injured, and could independently reach the hospital, or wait for an ambulance, which is already on the way. Out of the corner of her ear, the boss heard him saying goodbye, saying that she was forced to return to work, and finally reminded that she should compensate him for money at the expense of the state. However, all these words did not matter. It was much more important to understand what exactly happened to her and where the force disappeared. Meanwhile, the hero returned home and finally finished his work. He promised himself that someday he would definitely rest well. Caishen, who stood in front of an open refrigerator and intended to arrange a night snack, noticed that it was too late, and was surprised, because he was sure that his friend would stay at work. With a mockery, he suggested that the boss again drank all the juices out of him. But the next moment, the friend was wary and for a while lost the speechless. His hands trembled, and a bottle of sweet water slipped, with a loud ringing, hitting the floor. Lu Yue did not understand anything, and could not figure out what made him so nervous. Turning around, he finally saw Mao Ke, who was surprised to inspect the room. It seemed that she could not believe that this little apartment was his residence. The young man did not understand what was happening, and why Miss Lin was here, but the lady did not pay attention and, turning to the guy, said that she had several questions. If he answers them, she would escape execution for past crimes. Without hesitation, Miss Lin grabbed the young hero by the hand and led him along. Caishen drew attention with a grin that the girl's stockings were torn, and suggested that Lu had already managed to step a little. Soon, Lu Yue and Mao Ke went outside, and their conversation became more and more tense. The young man could not understand what the boss wanted, because even if he is her subordinate, this does not mean that he is obliged to be next to her all the time. The director noticed that the guy was talking to her as if she was not his teacher, and stated that she was an empress of the underworld, who, after thousands of years of improvement, finally reached the world of people and gods. And it was strange that she could not use her strength. Lu Yue thoughtfully looked at the girl. Clearly something was wrong with her. Probably. She reread the short story and now lives in some kind of her world. The guy remembered rumors according to which, after the restoration of spiritual energy, cultivators and ancient warriors began to appear on Earth. But there were very few of them. But he and Miss Lin were always considered ordinary people. The young man did not have time to finish. The boss suddenly grabbed his neck. Lu Yue calmly noted that if the boss wants to say something, then she could well express it in words without resorting to violence. The lady was staring at his face, as if trying to find out something, and then frowned. Suspicion appeared in her gaze. She realized that he did not have an alliance aura, which means that someone could specially send him to confuse the Empress. The young man pulled away sharply, not understanding what was being discussed. What other alliance? Meanwhile, the bandits lurked in the bushes. They noticed a person who was needed, and one of them offered to crank everything as a regular robbery. However, the villains did not go unnoticed. Mao Ke angrily turned around, and her gaze promised them an inevitable punishment for an uninvited arrival. One of the bandits, without wasting time, concentrated the energy in his hands. He did not expect that they would be discovered so quickly. But despite this, he was not confused. A magical flame of poisonously pink emanated from his palms. The young man for a moment was speechless, realizing that they had a real cultivator. But why ordinary people became his goal? This is clearly for a reason. The situation is full of strange mysteries. The villain squinted, realizing that he witnessed him to nothing, and apologized to the guy for seeing more than he should. Cultivators are ruthless, which means that the witnesses are doomed to death. The bandit approached, intending to end Lu Yue right now. However, the young man instinctively closed his hands, and at the same moment a magic dome formed around him. The system instantly reacted, finding a threat, and activated the protective mechanism. The villains flew away a few meters, unable to resist this unexpected force. It was something incredible. The young man in confusion listened to how the system reminded of the average level of shock from the minion. The task of the beginner was completed, and as a reward he received 10 pills of immortality. The young man was amazed. This voice sounded again. Was the very guy really installed the protective dome? Meanwhile, the beauty, grinning, turned to Lu Yue, calling him a fool, and stated that she would teach him a lesson, in her opinion, allowing the enemy to survive to sign a death sentence. The young lady confidently stepped forward, decisively saying that she would cope with these ants. The next moment, her leg shot up in a sharp blow, after which a crushing attack followed. With icy calm, Mao Ke watched the elements absorbing enemies. The lady had no doubt that her physical strength is more than enough to cope with these bandits. Lu Yue suddenly realized that this was not a hallucination at all. He really had a shock system. But it was much more important that he was already standing before the person whom the worker knew earlier. His boss seemed to disappear, giving way to a completely different person. Was she really an empress? The guy continued to reflect on this, but suddenly his phone vibrated. His friends bombarded him with messages, calling the internet cafe, and without hiding surprise, they haunted them. How such a beauty could fall in love with him? Lu Yue grinned thoughtfully. In fact, he himself did not understand this. Everything happened too suddenly. Suddenly, the door swung open, and Mao Ke appeared on the threshold. The owner of the house invited her to enter and offered to get a job, where she would be convenient. They had to discuss the situation. Slightly embarrassed, the young man admitted that he had not cleaned for a long time, so the room could be a little dirty. However, the lady only shrugged, answering that she was not particularly worried. Much more, the young lady was occupied by the dogmatism of her students. Lu Yue went to the refrigerator, summing up the situation to herself. The Empress somehow moved to this world and occupied the body of his boss, Miss Lin. She nodded, agreeing. In general, everything converged. At some point in her life, a difficult period came. The lady had already reached an elevation. In front of her was a decisive battle with a righteous alliance, but suddenly turned out to be completely devoid of strength. Having been wary, Lu Yue specified what kind of alliance it was. Judging by the tone of the boss, we could conclude that their relationship was, to put it mildly, tense. The lady with contempt threw her legs on her foot and explained that it was just a gang of bandits and thieves who pretend to be the righteous. Her voice was filled with cold fury. If they really want war, she will show them a mountain of corpses and rivers of blood. Lu Yue thought. It turned out that the demonic empress was now his boss terrorist. He handed her a bank with a drink, offering water, and recalled that in this world the laws are somewhat different. Mao Ke resolutely stated that she would not believe it until she saw with his own eyes. In response, Lu Yue, without thinking twice, took the remote control and turned on the TV. On the screen there was something reminiscent of magic and witchcraft, accompanied by a fiery attack. The beauty stared at the image with amazement, carefully listening to the guy's explanations. All this seemed unusual on the one hand. The laws resembled those that she knew, but on the other, differed too much. She fell silent for a moment, digesting the information, and Lu Yue continued to explain. In this world, in order to fly into the sky and break a meteorite, a slight movement of the fingers is enough. Mauka unexpectedly interrupted him. In her opinion, it was very reminiscent of a smart path. The young man grinned, confirming her words. No matter how the improvement is developed in a parallel world, he could not be compared with earthly technologies. So it was not worth harming people. The consequences could be too serious. The lady noticed that if we talk about improvement, then spiritual energy in this world is so scarce that it was hardly possible to find at least one master here. With these words, she approached Lu Yuva and touched his forehead. Around her hand, amazing energy was spinning. Mao Ke admitted that the guy's natural data was one of the best that she had to see. Lu Yue did not fully understood her words and was a little embarrassed. The system corrected his data, but even so, the guy did not expect them to make an impression on her. The Empress noted that if the young man was in her world, then over 300 or even less, in a few years, he could dispel the stagnation of Qi and reach great heights. But the reality is such that they are in this world. Suddenly there was a melody, urging the owner to take the phone. The hero, still thinking about what he heard, mechanically reached for the device. Voice messages were displayed on the screen from an angry manager. Judging by them, a deep night has already come, and the subordinate never answered the working messages. The colleague demanded that the situation immediately rectify, otherwise he would simply lose his job tomorrow. The beauty looked at him sympathetically. The first hour of the day had already begun, and he still had to work. Real labor service. Approaching the window, the beauty thoughtfully remembered the case from her world, as if she saw how a small official, responsible for the construction of the bridge, humiliated the wives of the old peasants. For this, he was cut. Lu Juve squinted at her with a slight fear. It was as simple as to eat a man for this girl to eat. Meanwhile, the heroine continued her story when the Righteous Alliance found out about this. His representatives began to spread rumors that she was a brutal killer. Then she had a reason to attack them. But the next second, the girl suddenly smiled, shrugging her shoulders. However, it did not matter, all the same. These old bastards could not defeat her. The young man relaxed a little. It seems that this devil still had some kind of borders, and it was good. Thinking, he noted that all this resembles a fighter in the anti-utopia. Mao Ke interestedly asked what this means. But Lu Yue looked again at the phone, and making sure that he was still working, nodded. Still a useful thing. One of the basic in this world. Without it, nowhere. The lady began to rummage in her pockets, trying to find her phone. After a moment, the device was in her hands, and she handed it to the guy. The young man noted that the accident in which she got was serious. Perhaps the phone failed. However, having unlocked it, the young man was surprised. The device worked properly. Moreover, the phone did not receive a single scratch. He took Mao Ke by the hand, offering to teach her to use the phone correctly. With his help, the lady touched the screen, unlocking the device using a fingerprint. Lu Yue, with a satisfied look, noted that everything went successfully, and the phone was unlocked. However, the lady experienced a slight confusion. He took her hand, which seemed unacceptable. Soon, angry cries were heard from the apartment that he would certainly suffer a heavenly punishment for such impudence. At that moment, the door was knocked on the door. The arrived courier politely handed the order and wished the pleasant appetite. Mao Ke immediately noticed how attractive the smell was, awakening the appetite. Meanwhile, Lu Yue returned to the room, not hiding his delight. He stated that if he was already at night, then only a barbecue. Then he asked if there was something like that on his native planet, Miss Lin. Having picked up a barbecue, the young man invited the girl to try, assuring that her taste would pleasantly surprise her. The beauty carefully bit off a piece, and the next instant, something unexpected happened. She froze, staring silently in front of her, intending to understand her sensations. However, after a second, she admitted that the taste is really unusual. Like a fiery dragon penetrated the throat. The hero, with a smile, suggested that in her world, they probably did not know chili pepper. So this effect is unusual for her. Mauka replied that they have black pepper, but it does not have such an acute. The guy thoughtfully noticed that their cultures are too different. In this city, everyone was accustomed to simple food. Then the young man offered to eat slowly. The sharpness was really impressive, but the cold drink was well neutralized. The hero took out a jar of soda, saying that there is nothing better than the cola after barbecue. The lady took a sip, and some surprise flashed on her face. The mistress did not expect such a strange effect. She suddenly set her tongue, not knowing how to get rid of an unusual sensation. Leaning back on the sofa, she noted that after this drink, the tip of the tongue was numb, and the sensation is like a whirlwind of qi, twisting inside. The young man explained that carbonated water is very popular here. It better quenches thirst and has a pleasant taste. But drink it better quickly and with one sip. Mao Ke nodded, admitting that the taste is really interesting, sweet. But if you transfer this drink to its world, it would most likely be considered poison. Her thoughts took place into a distant past, where the students would probably have been alarmed, deciding that their mentor decided to commit suicide by drinking such a strange potion. Most likely, she would simply say that it is necessary to harden the body, and would invite students to follow her example. Addressed followers would certainly admit that their master, as expected, is incredibly strong. Laughing, the lady attracted the attention of Lu Yue. The guy in surprise asked what so amused her. Having calmed down a little, the girl dismissed. Citing an accident, a randomly remembered, the young man suggested ordering something else if she did not like food. But when he reached for the plates, Mao Ke suddenly grabbed his hand, not allowing them to remove them. The lady assured that she wanted to eat, just so far she was not used to this food. The hero asked if she was sure of his decision, and warned that chili was not a toy. However, the beauty proudly stated that, being an empress, she would not be afraid of some kind of children's seasoning. After that, she resolutely brought barbecue to her mouth and began to eat, trying to hide the discomfort. Meanwhile, the guy offered to order noodles in case she was too sharp, but Mao Ke only grabbed a can of cola and proclaimed that now it was her favorite drink. A few minutes later, she was relieved to back in the sofa, clearly overestimating her forces. Lu Yue scratched his head, noting to himself that she was not at all so persistent to demonstrate her endurance. Then the young man looked into the phone and found many angry messages from the manager. Jen demanded an immediate correction of work, threatening to inform Miss Lin about all. Otherwise, the guy was invited to look for another place. Lu Juve mentally grinned, imagining how his gene continues to fly in front of Miss Lin. Not knowing that her soul had long left the body, now there was a completely different woman in front of him, and there was no trace of her previous person in her behavior. Suddenly, an interesting thought arose in his head, and a mysterious smile flashed on his lips. In the end, no matter what soul is inside, the main thing, the body remained the same. Some time passed, and morning came. The bright sun lit up a new day. The lady looked at the elevator with curiosity. He resembled her native vertical staircase, raising people from the bottom up, but had a different appearance and principles of work. Despite the differences, the functionality remained similar. The young man grinned, recalling that now she, their incomparable boss, Miss Lin. The girl with an arrogant look nodded, showing that she remembered this perfectly, and headed for the exit. A young man came out towards them, portraying the joy of her appearance. He said that he was worried about Mao Ke, because she did not answer the messages all night, and got into a car accident. Gu Xiaonan, that was the name of the young man, offered to cook her breakfast, parm ham with melons. The lady cast an incomprehensible look at him and asked who he was. Lu Yue casually replied that it was her boyfriend, in other words, the stupid son of the landowner. Guo Xiaonan looked at Lu Juve and irritatedly recalled that he had already warned him to stay away from Mao Ke. In addition, the young man believed that next to such a woman, there was no place for a person who literally blows poverty. Lu Yue ignored these words and suggested Miss Lin to go to the office to view documents. Suddenly, another employee approached them, clearly rejoiced at the return of the boss. Jen immediately began to complain about Lu Yue, saying that he had not finished work on the project yesterday, and also allowed himself rude words to Miss Lin. In addition, he proposed to immediately dismiss the employee for such inappropriate behavior. The guy whispered in his ear to the young lady that it was this man who called him last night and reminded him of the report. Mao Ke remembered this conversation and how this type spoke unflattering about its boss. However, the young man smiled and said that all this was not true, and Lu Yue simply lied to her. But the young lady angrily objected that they were together all night, so now the employee could not abandon her words. This statement shocked the unfortunate man in shock. Like this: they were all night, because the conclusions could be ambiguous. The next moment, the hero grabbed his head in horror. This statement only aggravated the situation. But then something was even more incredible. The young man heard a system notification, which reported that he successfully caused a medium-sized shock and received the technique of ancient martial art. Some time passed. The door of the boss's office was tightly closed. Lu Yue was sitting at the computer and noticed that the password would no longer stop him. All files with information about employees were on her computer as soon as they received them. They will find out where she lives. The lady noticed that, judging by the words of his colleagues, Lu Yuva did not get along with the original owner of the body too much. It was not clear why he suddenly decided to help her. The hero, embarrassed, said that he was a wonderful social person who willingly comes to the rescue. And he thought to himself that holding the empress nearby and dictating his will to the feudal lord perfectly, the young man said that it is urgent to return the accountable funds, and then it will be seen how this impudent type will sit in the galosh. The young man noticed that if you leave her here, then those people who are shown on TV will capture Maoke. This is equivalent to throwing her to their fate. The young lady was scared, because she did not want to be in such a situation. Lu Yue took a treat and noticed that it was really tasty, a product of the highest quality, prepared by Mr. Guo Xiaonan. After that, he got up from his seat and handed the girl a plate to try it too. However, the young lady remembered her recent experience when she tried barbecue. Apparently, this red food should also be very acute. Maoke was agitated. Then the lady moved to the edge of the sofa and stated that she was not going to try it. Some time passed, and Maoke resolutely left the office, holding Lu Yue by the hand. On the way, they met an unfortunate employee who dragged water. He complained that he had already had a lower back and asked for mercy. However, the lady angrily stated that she had already shown incredible generosity without applying the heavenly punishment, so he dared not to say anything. This follows punishment, 10 hours of work. Meanwhile, Guo Xiaonan entered the corridor, who asked Maoke what work this little one should do. The young man whispered in her ear that he was very stupid and poor, so he should not allow him to fool himself. However, Maoke turned around and looked angrily at Guo Xiaonan. This look did not promise anything good. Guo Xiaonan immediately changed in the mood, and noticed that before Maoke did not make such an expression on her face. Why she looks like a completely different person. Meanwhile, Lu Yue turned to a young man and said that he was very grateful for the ham. She was really tasty. Guo Xiaonan for a moment was speechless. This insolent ate a breakfast, which he prepared with such love for his passion. The young man said that he would not intervene in their affairs, but the unfortunate lover was beside himself with anger. Lu Yue thought that these replicas were not enough to activate the shock system, and, apparently, it was necessary to change the approach. Gu Xiaonan, gritting his teeth, noticed that they would still see who would laugh the last. The young man would not leave this. Soon Maoke and her ward arrived at the luxurious residential complex, the Shanshui mansion. Lu Yue noticed that he did not have to resemble a fingerprint. This empress has a clearly good memory. The girl with a slight smile replied that, of course, she remembers a lot and very quickly adapts to a new environment. The hero with admiration noted that the house of the head of Lin looks very luxurious and rich. It will be necessary to teach her to use several devices. The young man noticed that fire and electricity are very important in the kitchen, but over time you can learn this. The beauty replied that this was not necessary, because she never cooked and was not going to start. The guys examined the bathroom, which looked very aesthetically pleasing and presentable. The young lady was surprised why it was necessary to control something in order to wash in one place. Did her body go bankrupt? The young man pressed the toilet button and explained that with its help, it can be washed off, as well as deodorization. After that, the young man showed where you can configure hot and cold water for a shower. Mao Qi suggested that the original owner of this house probably had replaceable clothes, and asked her to bring. Lu Yue went to the closet and opened it thoughtfully. Several sets of clothes dangled on the hanger. The young man froze for a moment. He did not even expect that the head of Lin Maoke could be so hot being alone with him. The hero took things in an armful and noticed that there were enough clothes, so you cannot worry whether something would suit or not. The young lady washed in the shower and warned that so far it was not to go to the bathroom. This body is so weak that it can easily catch a cold even from a light draft. Lu Yue thoughtfully looked at his clothes. How to teach him an unearthed guest to dress correctly. The young man noticed that you just need to put on everything, as in the picture, and asked not to confuse in this process. Mao Ke confidently replied that she understood everything perfectly and easily cope with this task. The lady was surprised to examine the robe. It looked strange, but did she really not see the light at all, and did not understand what it was? In any case, the design was not as convenient as it was used to. In thought, the lady looked at several ropes, thinking whether it was possible to call it clothes. Meanwhile, Lu Yue sat under the sofa in front of the TV in a spacious living room. Soon Mao Ke came out, and the young man noted that she appeared just in time. A documentary about world history was going on TV. It talked about the development of life, the main branches of industry and energy. Mao Ke sat down on the sofa, intending to listen. However, in less than a few minutes, she plunged into a sweet nap. Lu Yue covered her with a blanket, surprised that, despite the interest in the film, the young lady fell asleep in just 15 minutes. Suddenly, a friend pulled her head abruptly, which looked unexpected. The next moment, the girl raised her hand, and Lu Yui was scared. He was confusedly tried to explain himself, saying that he simply wanted to cover her. But Mao Ke lowered her hand and continued to sleep. The guy was even more surprised. Even after such a movement, she did not wake up. Having decided to check, he brought a sheet of paper to her face to see the reaction. The boss suddenly pulled her hand and threw the sheet to the side. Lu Yue could not believe her eyes. Even in a dream, she could fight. Shocked, he scratched his head and decided to stay away from it. The system indicated that the technique of ancient martial art, which he had just received, is not intended for practice. Heavenly martial art required complete calm and clarity inside. Lu Yue put forward a fist. The name of the technique sounded quite medium. He began to wave his hands, clamping a strong fist and simulating the battle. However, from the very first movements, he felt severe pain in the whole body. The chest was squeezed, as if the heart was about to break out. Suddenly, Mauka rose from her seat and stated that if he continues training, it could kill him. Lu Yue looked at her in amazement, not understanding what she was talking about. The girl explained that she was not quite versed in his practice, but the higher the level of technology, the more benefit she brings. However, his foundation was too weak to master this style. In other words, he is still not enough. The upset, the young man thanked her for the advice, noting to himself that she was surprisingly good. It remained incomprehensible whether she had just slept or not. Mao Ke reached out sweetly and stated that she had naughty a little, and now she felt great. Lu Juve was shocked. Ordinary people do not fall asleep like that. Unexpectedly from these thoughts, he was interrupted by the phone call. Mr. Zhen reported the important news. It is urgent to transmit the last package of documents. He also assured that Lu Juve should not worry, since his main task is to stay close to Madame Lin. Having finished the conversation, the young man told the girl that he needed to return to work. But Mao Ke objected, saying that his presence next to her was enough to rid him of all his duties. Lu Yue turned around and noticed that the higher the abilities, the more obligations. If the employees used to sit back, the work will stop. Already at the door, he added that it is not worth complicating the life of these poor people. However, before the hero managed to go out, Mao Ke ordered to immediately stop and approach her. The beauty clarified that this would take a little time, but he is obliged to approach. In the numbness of Lu, Yue watched her inexorably approaching. He blushed, his heart was beating faster, all this seemed wrong. The next moment, the guy received a powerful slogan who instantly brought him to his senses. Grabbing his forehead, the young man noticed that it was very painful. Did he really offend her with something? Mao Ke ordered to forget about it, and reminded that it was time for him to leave. Defended, the hero noted that she orders him to leave again. Mao Ke cut off that he should not chat excess if he really did not want to leave. He was left. Going to the exit, the young man promised to order her food at home and warned her not to scare others. When he disappeared from sight, Mao Ke thought, the girl completely forgot that she had no true energy, which means she could not transfer spiritual consciousness through the air. The evening came. Lu Yue sat in satisfaction in the chair, noting that the work was completed. A colleague asked him to treat something at night, but the young man did not understand why he should do this. With a grin, he noticed that he should not pretend. Everyone knew that President Lin was, and this explained a lot. Arrogantly, Lu Yue said that he should not have guesses. Then he explained that yesterday the president was a small accident. It did not suffer, but many problems arose, and he accidentally turned out to be nearby to help her figure it out. There was nothing between them, and he still works overtime. The colleague proposed to get closer to the rich lady to free the brothers from work. All this was listened by Guo Xiaonan. He immediately realized that everything had to happen like that. However, it was not clear to him how the boss could pay attention to such a loser as he dared to get in front of his woman. Meanwhile, the full moon shone in the sky. A large mansion was covered in the twilight of the night. Mao Ke looked thoughtfully in front of her. The young lady's eyes sparkled with green fire. The expression on the girl's face was quite severe. It seemed that she did not see anything around. Lu Yue, suddenly going into the kitchen and sharply turning on the light, asked what happened here, because the sounds were as if a werewolf would appear now. The beauty turned sharply and noticed that it was incredibly evil, and the consequences would be harsh. The young man put a package on the table and noted that he does not understand what was the matter. But for a start, it is better to eat. The young lady thought for a moment and stopped angry as much as before. The next lady rose sharply and began to get Vontona, hoping to eat everything. When Mao Ke was saturated, she looked more calm and did not show aggression. The girl noticed that without chili pepper, food was not a very bright taste. and the young man noted that Vontona was better to be not resistant. Lu Yuve also noticed that in front of him is a living example of a person who at the same time likes to eat and play. The lady noticed that apparently this annoying phone decided to rebel against her. Wouldn't he order food for just 2 clicks? Why then this does not work? Now the young man realized why his girlfriend is angry. The hero patiently picked up the device and decided to check what was the problem. The young man explained that he pressed all the necessary buttons. And for payment, you need to scan his face. Mao Ke began to twist the phone in different directions, and the young man advised to direct the camera towards himself. Lu Yue also explained that this is the only way to transfer money from the phone to the store. Suddenly, the guy drew attention to the sheets of paper lying on the table. Hieroglyphs were written on them. Hurrying his breath, the young man read that this is a technique of meditation. Does Miss Lin really understand this? The young lady, looking down, noticed that it was she who wrote it, because she is very well versed in this. In response, the surprisingly young man, the lady explained that there was nothing special about this, because she had not forgotten how to use a pen and paper. This breathing technique unites the body, energy, as well as the soul and essence of the person himself, helping to strengthen the body and concentrate. As soon as the meridians are unlocked and the new energy takes shape, a person is likely to cope with any kind of martial arts. Lu Yue thought for a moment. For the first time, the young lady wrote something for him, and even so many. And the lady, winking, noted that certain conditions must also be met. However, the young man objected, although he sold his soul, but not the body. Nevertheless, the lady was determined. If the friend agreed, she must train in accordance with this method. She doesn't care whether he was gifted or simply hardworking. Then, already more severely, Mao Ke added that in 3 weeks Lu Yue should perfectly master everything. From the first chapter, because she does not tolerate delay, the young man was numb and trembled, not recognizing her friend. A real demon stood before him. Wow, respectfully, the young man asked how much time the first practice usually takes. The lady already softer replied that usually for about 4 weeks. But there should be no problems with the abilities of Lu Yue to master everything in 1 week. The hero thoughtfully read that when Dantian is full of chi energy, a person is able to simultaneously monitor the situation, control his body, defend himself from danger, and move in accordance with his pulse. Energy circulates smoothly, creating harmony and the connection between the body and the spirit. Then it returns to Dantan, revealing the true purpose of this practice. Meanwhile, Mauka tried cookies and noted that his taste is very fresh and sweet. The young lady noticed that it should not be strained like that. For a start, a friend could have a bite. Lu Yue was breathing thoughtfully. The flows of energy that concentrated around him came out of his mouth. The young man noticed that his body suddenly became much easier than before this practice. The lady stared at the guy in surprise. What an ideal breathing. Did he really have mastered the first chapter in just a couple of sighs? The hero could hardly believe what was happening. He carefully looked at his hand and asked what exactly he did. The girl explained that if he was able to draw energy into his body, then he took possession of the basics of cleansing the body. Now it is necessary to take a deep breath and try again. The young hero did so, enthusiastically drawing more air into himself. The procedure took several minutes, during which the young man tightly closed his eyes and was silently silent. Mao Qi was surprised to notice that he absorbed the energy in a radius of 12 kilometers. What awesome abilities. Suddenly there was a voice of the system, which reported that Lu Juve again successfully caused the shock of the empress. The achievement was not unlocked. Not again, but again, the awards were increased, and the guy received an instant step forward. The young man thoughtfully scratched his chin. The system worked again. Now the achievement of Dali, however, is logical when a person surprises someone. Expectations in relation to him are immediately growing, and then it becomes only more difficult to shock others. That's just one sheep to not collect a lot of wool, the young man thought, which means that you need to do something. And the way out of this situation was quite obvious, for example, to find more sheep. The next moment, Lu Yue erupted with a laugh from her thoughts. The lady was surprised to ask what was amused by so much. The young man replied that he was simply representing the day when he became an incomparable master. The young man asked if the empress had any instructions for him. And if not, then you can continue to train. Mao Ke admitted that she really has an important question that causes anxiety. Having lowered her eyes, the young lady asked why in this house there is no more cola that she liked so much. Lu Yue looked at his friend for several moments silently. This statement caused him a shock. The young man suggested that the courier may have problems if he teaches it to order products at night, after which he reached for a bottle of drink. The girl eagerly took several sips of an amazingly tasty and refreshing soda drink. Mao Ke, with satisfaction, noted that after that she became much better. When Lu Yue was about to go to the exit, the lady remembered that she needed to inform something else. The lady advised the guy to train as much as possible, because she more than once watched how gifted people blinded their naive arrogance. She believed that one should always remember how good and talented a person was. There is someone better. Suddenly, a treacherous hiccup again defeated the girl again. For a few moments she was non-stop and could not cope with this. Mao Ke, irritated that her body is still too weak and does not obey her at all. Lu Yue recalled that he had warned whether to drink too quickly or in large quantities. From this day she will be able to drink no more than 2 cans per day, and the guy will follow this. In addition, it is necessary to brush his teeth before bedtime. The heroine, with irritation, noticed that the friend was about to leave and was clearly in a hurry. Already standing at the door, the young man said that he would adhere to this decision, even if she tries to beat him. Otherwise, Mao Ke risked either to earn diabetes or spoil her teeth to such an extent that he could no longer enjoy his favorite drink. The girl was a little frightened by such a prospect. She clearly did not want to aggravate the situation. Meanwhile, Lu Yue went out the door, finally reminding him that he was not joking. Leaning back on the sofa, Mao Ke with pleasure felt the long-awaited silence. But suddenly the voice of Lu Yue rang out again. He said that he had retained his number on its main screen, so now it was enough to just click on it for a call. The lady thoughtfully lowered her head. Earlier, people were afraid of her and only said what she wanted to hear, but for a long time no one cared about her. At this time, the guy returned home and, looking around, was surprised where Tseishin could disappear. Suddenly rushing at the sofa, Lu Yue thought that, however, this is not so important. The day was long. Now I needed a vacation. The young hero opened the game and decided to play the King of the Gods again before going to bed. He carefully looked at the screen, checking which of his friends is on the network now. Having gained several buttons, the young man asked them to add him to the game to fight together. A few minutes passed before the friends answered. It turned out that everyone had business, and they already dispersed. Someone even reminded of a recent match, where they had to sacrifice glasses for the help of Lu Yue. The guy was disappointed, and did not understand why they were so dramatized, as if the loss of several points for them was worse than a knife, because they were brothers. However, soon another friend wrote, who recently arrived in Jinyang and offered to meet in a restaurant. Lu Yue thought they had been playing together for 3 or 4 years, but they had not seen each other live. With such an avatar, he could even be the leader of the mafia. Meanwhile, in the observation room, 3 people were not looking up at the screen. In this old district, the connection disappeared as soon as they entered. A bald man expressed anxiety, noting that something was clearly wrong here, and advised him to be alert. However, the other was holding a photograph of Lu Yue and confidently stated that he should not worry. He had already agreed with someone who would deal with this guy. At this time, Lu Yue arrived at the restaurant and waited for a friend in the game. He sent a message that was already on the spot and that you could approach his table. His thoughts involuntarily switched to ordered barbecue and wine from the tiger bones. The hero was sure that a friend would definitely like such a treat. Submitted into thought, the hero did not immediately notice how someone approached him. In front of him was a girl who thoughtfully pushed a chair, intending to sit next to him. The guy immediately made it clear that the place was occupied. Very soon a friend would come up to him. Lu Yue was slightly surprised. Sometimes the bartenders brought drinks to the table, but since when they sat down for him, having carefully looked at the young lady, he felt that her presence somehow presses him on him. But suddenly the lady greeted him and called her the very old maniac. Then, showing the chat, the lady explained that she probably was not mistaken, and came to where she needed. Lu Yue was amazed. It really was she. Just incredibly, her voice in the game sounded completely different. The lady explained that this sister, Lin Zhe, insisted on changing her voice, because it was easy to deceive the girls. So she used the program to change it. Once forgot to turn it on, but it seems that no one noticed anything. The young man remembered that then they decided that the old maniac brought home a girl. However, a little thought, the young lady noticed that she did not like this nickname, and asked me to not call it anymore. In fact, her name was Xiaofen, and in the near future, the beauty was going to live in Jinyang. Soon they ended up on a beautiful large bridge near the river. Lu Juve noticed that the girl had come alone, and thought about whether she was afraid that he would be a bad person. Xiaofen dismissed, saying that it was wrapping himself too much. She was engaged in struggle since childhood, so that 3 or even 5 such guys as her new acquaintance could not even approach her. The young man felt strange. It was unusual to realize that his good friend was a sweet girl. Xiaofen suddenly looked at him with excitement. Just Lu Yue called her sweet. This embarrassed her. Hitting a lot on the bridge several times, the lady muttered that they were just friends, and she was embarrassed to hear such words. The hero was suddenly alert. A strange crack was heard very close. The next second, the young man realized what was the matter. The bridge began to crumble. Xiaofen fell down, managing only to warn him so that she was careful and not hurt. And at that moment, Lu Yue thought that everything was not as bad as he imagined. The next moment, Xiaofen fell on Lu Yue, knocking him down. A few more minutes passed before the guys began to fall down rapidly. The blow to the ground turned out to be painful, and the young man lost his orientation for a moment, lying motionless. Xiaofen hastened to apologize, explaining that due to the features of her muscles from childhood, she often breaks things. Lu Yue, shaking away, assured her that everything was in order and there were no reasons for concern. However, as soon as he got up, a call of the phone of Xiaofen was heard. A new order was received. The girl happily reported that this is her first order, which is very helpful. The interested Lu Yue asked what was talking about. The guy wanted to know in more detail. Xiaofen demonstrated an application called Quick Reward. The young man thought. He heard that this service is gaining popularity. Users can place tasks and ask for help if they have a respectful reason. Remembering the conversation with the cook, Lu Yue realized that he ordered a Baronine bar and Tigerbone wine through this application. After completing the assignment, the contractor not only received the promised reward, but also saved the hero's points. Xiaofen confirmed that it was, adding that she dreams of becoming the coolest hero in the world. She said that the customer said someone stole his lover, and he wants the kidnapper to be taught a lesson. The young man was sure that such bastards deserve punishment. However, looking at the photo of the goal, the hero was stunned. He himself was in the picture. The next moment, Xiaofen quickly hit him on the forehead. Lu Yue, with indignation, bounced and demanded an explanation, saying that he could not commit this. Then he added that the heroes could not act without evidence. However, Xiaofen was adamant. This is her first mission, and if he is really her friend, he would allow herself to punish. She promised to try not to kill him. With these words, the heroine accelerated and struck with all her might. The young man retorted, grinning. Usually for the sake of friends they risk life. And she turns out, is ready to kill him for the sake of a ward? Xiaofen was surprised at his dexterity. She did not expect him to dodge. Perhaps this was an accident. Lu Yue gritted his teeth. How could you fight with a girl, even if she is clearly not in the mood to retreat? But since there is no way out, he will have to fight. After a moment, Xiaofen realized that she had lost sight of him. She looked around, but did not have time to do anything, as Lu Yue was behind her. The blow of the heavenly path, the first uniform, came very close to his tense voice. His fist approached her face. Tension grew. Xiaofen thought in a daze. This blow requires at least 30 years of practice. He just pretended to be a naive simpleton. Suddenly, a system notification was heard. Lu Yue activated the ability of a mental shock, a temporary effect, suppressing the spirit of the enemy and forcing the spell of the will of the caster. Xiaofen remembered the words of his grandfather that in China, are full of hidden talents. She could not compare with him, no matter how much she trained. The hero approached her with a smile and asked not to be upset. He also trained from childhood. Most importantly, the surprise of the attack. Xiaofen looked thoughtfully at him. If he really trained since childhood, then why was his style of movements to her unfamiliar? Perhaps this type hides something. The girl decided to test this in practice. Lu Yue recoiled. Her gaze became harsh. She confidently stated that if the young man really trained since childhood, then there should be traces on his body. Therefore, she asked him not to resist and let her conduct a check. The young man in a panic tried to dissuade her, promising to tell everything. When the guy ended his story, Xiaofen looked at him in amazement. In just 3 months, he reached such heights. Although perhaps his training was not entirely ordinary. In fact, the young man studied for only 3 days. But Lu Yue preferred not to disclose this fact. Now the lady realized that these are special martial arts that cannot be spread about. She thought that her grandfather would say when she found out about this, and decided to certainly introduce him to Lu Yue. But the young man was worried about another who ordered his murder. The hero said that as a person, committed by pure and sincere love, would never have acted as described in the order. Xiaofen replied that in the application you can't see the customer, but she may try to make an appointment. After some time, a large black car drove up to the sidewalk. Lu Yue and Xiaofen expected these people. The young man, getting out of the car, admiredly noted that the girl coped with the task. Xiaofen smiled and said that she brought him. Now you can do anything with him. The young man looked at the strangers and realized that he sees them for the first time. The guy from the car flinched flirty and thanked his sister for his help, promising to put her 5 stars in the review. Lu Yue was indignant. Perhaps a mistake occurred. He had never met with these people before. That abnormal recalled that Lu Yue took advantage of it, and he already forgot about it, which was indecent. In a rage, he added that he would take away a man from him, a dangerous crime. The next moment, several tightly folded men, similar to his sisters, jumped out of the car. The enemy said that today Lu Yue would pay for all his atrocities. The bandits noted that this could be a little painful, but nothing can be done. Too great the desire to punish this sweet boy. The hero thought about it. They really chose him with their goal, or are simply trying to manipulate them. However, the true motives of the bandits did not matter. The young hero decided to use them as an opportunity to test a new skill. He applied the technique of mental shock, forcing the enemies to freeze for a moment. After that, the young man calmly informed them that they should return to their leader and do the same with him that they were going to do with him. Without saying a word, the bandits turned around and dutifully went to fulfill this order. Xiaofen asked in surprise, would they really let them go? The hero thoughtfully replied that while these bandits can be left alone. A little time passed, and Lu Yue, along with Xiaofen, went for a walk along the bridge. The lady sighed in upset. The date came to an end, and she wanted to spend even more time together. However, she soon called her sister, concerned about her delay, so it was time to return home. Lu Yue calmly remarked that everything was in order, because a friend would remain in Jinyang for a long time, and the next time they will be able to take a walk with the rest of the guys. Xiaofen waved goodbye to him and said with a smile that she was looking forward to the next meeting. The young man looked thoughtfully after her, and Xiaofen, meanwhile, was already talking with her sister, agreeing to take her. The young man heard a friend reproached Linja that she was distracted by the conversation and did not notice a passing truck. But instead of worrying about her sister, Linja only asked if everything was all right with the car. Lu Yue thought about how Lao Ju will react when he finds out who this old maniac is actually. Suddenly a bell rang. The name Mao Ke was highlighted on the screen, which was very unexpected. Did she really learn to use the phone? With anxiously, the guy specified whether she was really, if the girl was abducted, she should have coughing twice. The beauty confidently replied that there was no doubt about her abilities. It was not so difficult to deal with the device. However, her next request found the guy by surprise. The girl wanted him to accompany her to the clothing store. After some time, they stopped at a small shopping center. With a smile, Lu Yue handed the driver to the driver and a pack of cigarettes, compensating for the recent incident. He did not explain that his boss was a little out of himself, but assured that no one was going to rob him. After that, the young man strictly noticed that if Mao Ke did not know how to stop a taxi, this is not a reason to leave footprints on foreign cars. The lady calmly replied that she simply followed his instructions. He said to stop the car, and she did so. Understanding that it was useless to argue, Lu Yue decided to leave this issue. But he was wondering why Mao Ke needed to go to the store, because she still had enough clothes. The boss noticed that she did not want to wear other people's things, after which she began to examine clothes on hangers. A friendly saleswoman approached them. She suggested that the master wants to purchase an outfit for his companion, and said that they had just a new collection of the highest quality, which was ideal for her. Lu Yue noted to himself that this is a rather cunning approach, to contact a man right away, because it is more difficult for the buyer to refuse due to the high price, without awkward. Nevertheless, he said that the decision remains behind his companion, and the guy himself is here only to make purchases. Some young people who watched them burst out laughing. They decided that Lu Yue, just a servant, well, nothing surprising. The poor man like him could hardly meet such a spectacular girl. Meanwhile, the saleswoman brought several outfits and offered them Mao Ke, noting that among them there are convenient everyday options, as well as a more free style. However, judging by the elegance of the buyer, she is likely to suit her a Chanel suit. Not every girl can wear such things. Mao Ke asked in surprise what was talking about. What other styles and images? She completely did not understand what the saleswoman was talking about. Lu Yue explained that she simply shows clothes for different occasions. Some things are suitable for official events, while others are more convenient to wear at home. Such an explanation turned out to be much more understandable to the lady. Noticed that she was starting to understand this. Immediately, the girl asked if they had clothes suitable for battles. The saleswoman and several guys who watched the conversation stared at her with surprise. Lu Yue could not believe that this was happening in reality. Mao Ke sincerely did not understand what was the matter, because she saw something similar on one of the sites. The young man realized that it was not worth it to give her access to the internet. Trying to smooth out the situation at least somehow, he said that the boss was carried away by the image of the heroines from books and films, so she needs something spectacular. Mao can notice that if this is not, then it's okay, but if there is, she is ready to try on. The guys who watched the scene were even more amazed. It seems that this type did not just wear bags. Lu Yue, meanwhile, clarified that the director was going to business dinner, so they need something appropriate. The saleswoman nodded knowingly and assured that she would try to find something suitable. When the outfit was chosen, Mao Ke went to the fitting room. A few minutes passed before the lady had fully changed. Finally, the young pushed the curtain and went out to show how the dress was sitting on it. The saleswoman and young people who were in the hall enthusiastically looked at her. Mao Ke looked amazing. The dress emphasized her figure perfectly, and the whole image looked flawlessly. The girl noticed that it was like the outfits that she wore in her world. The saleswoman with a smile said that this dress is from their last vintage collection, a classic style that is perfect for her. Mao Ke furtively looked at her reflection. It seems that this is really what is needed. Without thinking twice, she announced that she was taking this outfit. She likes him. Lu Yui also needed to choose clothes, so Mao Ke asked the saleswoman to find a suitable suit for him. The guy was a little confused, not understanding why he had this, while the saleswoman began to fuss, choosing an outfit. Finally, he put on an elegant suit, which looked strictly and presentable enough. Mao Ke, with a smile, noted that this style is very suitable for him, and now you can safely go to the checkout. However, the hero understood until the end why it was necessary to buy clothes for him. The lady explained that she recently received a message from her grandmother, Miss Lin, with a request to attend a family banquet, which will take place in a few days. Mao Ke brought the phone to the terminal and was surprised that payment could happen in this way. Before, she did not even know about it. The girl continued to explain that it was a good opportunity to study the world around him, and suggested that Lu Juve make her company. But the next moment, something unexpected happened. The saleswoman said that the funds were not enough. It was quite strange. Lu Yue was sure that Lin had more than enough money on his account, but it was too late to understand. Without hesitation, he offered to pay for all the chosen clothes. This day was worth it, even if he had to pour the remaining 2 months. Everything is in order. However, his face changed noticeably when Lu Yue heard the total amount, 38,888 yuan, with a proposal to accumulate loyalty points. The shock was so strong that the guy refused without unnecessary questions. Soon, they arrived in a cafe. Mao Ke thoughtfully drank the drink that the waiters brought her. She tried him and noticed that he was too sweet. The taste was unusual and did not like it too much. The lady noted that if you compare, then there is too much sugar and the steak is much tastier. Meanwhile, Lu Yue stressfully leafed through the phone. Checking the history of transactions on her account, he noticed a major transfer to a state institution and realized that he needed to talk to the manager of Chenam. Mao Ke shrugged and said that cash questions are tiring her, and she did not want to deal with them. In response to a replica, the young man said that it was about her money. The girl replied that she did not see the problem in this, and reminded that now her money was his money. Lu Yue specified with a smile to whom his own savings would belong then. Mao Ke assured that they would remain him. The young man for a moment felt relief, deciding that it was just perfect. However, the next moment, Mao Ke with a grin cooled his ardor, recalling that he would not go anywhere and now belongs to her. The hero thought that these conditions should be discussed in more detail. Meanwhile, Mao Ke was suddenly alert and said that the people pursuing them had finally disappeared. Lu Yue did not immediately understand who was talking about, but admitted that he also felt behind him. The heroine praised him for good instincts, but admitted that she was very tired and asked to deal with everything on her own. Meanwhile, one of the bandits spoke on the phone. They almost reached their goal, but suddenly an order received an order to cancel the operation. The man at the other end of the wire said that it was originally planned to eliminate Lu Yui, since he was a witness to the accident involving Mao Ke. However, if she is alive, it is pointless to create additional problems. The bandit did not agree with this. They have already lost 3 people, and now they don't care what the consequences will be. He turned to his partner and offered to discuss what to do next. He confidently stated that sooner or later they would take revenge. After some time, Lu Yue sat in his office, when Zhen came to him and said that Ms. Lin Mao Ke really paid last month, and later the money would need to be returned. Zhen also added that it is necessary to sign a new contract with the supplier, and expressed the hope that the brother Lu would figure it out and everything. Lu Yuwei looked thoughtfully at the documents. Frankly, the guy did not understand the finances too well. But then he remembered the words of Mao Ke, that now it was his money. If so, he should have gathered his thoughts and figure out everything. Because it will provide him for decades ahead, he asked Jen to give him a folder with documents. Lu Yue noted that they need to be carefully studied, as they contain important information. He brought prepared papers, which turned out to be quite a lot. Looking at a huge number of papers, the employee had already foreseen how his head would begin to boil from tension. He did not leave the feeling that all these contracts have been accumulated during the year specifically for him. It seemed just an impossible venture to process such a number of papers. However, Jen assured that the volume of work is not so large, and even offered assistance in analysis. Lu Yue did not trust the manager, who knows what he is imprisoning. It is better to understand everything on his own. The guy only specified several points and realized that he needed to compare the documents with the supply contract. Jen, leaving the office, said that he was always ready to help if necessary. Later, Guo Xiaonan, with a smile, noticed that Lu Yue did not trust Jaina and did not give him the opportunity to help. He found it very interesting. This naive young man only confirmed that he really does not believe the manager. The next moment they both laughed. This self-confident type obviously will not last long. If he transferred the documents to Zhenya, the manager would be responsible for any mistakes. But since this fool decided to do everything himself, then the responsibility lies only on him. Lu Yue carefully counted the data, not believing the possibility of error. He was sure that he could not provide fake documents. How can you get the right result? If the list of expenses is incorrectly, the audit will take eternity. Guo Xiaonan noted that the best strategy would be to turn a plan against its creator. Jen noticed that the financial situation of the company is already leaving the best. Employees are already expressing dissatisfaction. And if another contract is spoiled, this will negatively affect the entire organization. Even if Madame Mao Ke tries to protect Lu Juve, the protest of shareholders will make his stay in the company impossible. Guo Xiaonan agreed, adding that as soon as the prepared video with Lu Yue was on the site for adults, it would be finally finished with him. At that moment, the secretary entered the room and said that the master was expected. The mercenaries of Guo Xiaonana came, probably for a report on the work done. The girl was worried about calling the police, fearing that these people pose a threat. But Guo Xiaonan assured her that she knew well with them. In addition, he asked her not to tell anyone, no matter what happened, and not to disturb him during the meeting. The secretary promised to fulfill his request and do everything in accordance with expectation. Meanwhile, Guo Xiaonan, along with mercenaries, went to the stairwell to discuss issues in a more secluded atmosphere. The secretary watched them with surprise, wondering who these people are and what they are doing. Suddenly, the angry cries of Guo Nana were heard from the elevator. He did not understand why his team was silent, because they came to report on the completed task. Following, there were screams for help. The employee thought that the master was in danger. She was about to rush to the elevator, but she remembered that he asked not to intervene. Perhaps this was said for a reason. Outside, strange sounds came, and the girl froze in a daze. So, how rich people have fun. It's hard to even imagine what is happening behind closed doors. By evening, Lu Yue was still sitting at work. He was incredibly tired. The numbers were confused in the head. The total amount was different, but with separate calculations everything converged, which is the problem. The guy decided that if he did not succeed the first time, he would try again and again, focused on the screen. Suddenly, the phone vibrated. Someone wanted to talk to him. As soon as the young man answered, at the other end of the wire, there were angry cries of Mao Ke. She complained that too much time had passed, and she was still hungry. Lu Yue invited her to order delivery, because he could not leave right now. But Mao Ke firmly stated that she gave him a minute to go down. After some time, they found themselves in a small cafe near the office. Mao Ke was surprised to look at the food that the waiter brought. It looked unusual for her. Nevertheless, she could not help but admit that the wontons and the fragrant broth were quite tasty. Lu Yue noted that the noodles with pork intestines are also magnificent, and offered to try, but the lady refused. The guy asked, did she really not learn how to order food, because you could just eat at home? He suggested that Mao Ke simply wanted to have dinner with him, so she came to the office. This conjecture surprised the girl so that she even choked. Then, having recovered, she stated that it was not true. It was just difficult for her to decide on the choice, so she decided that it would be easier. After a small pause, Mao Ke asked in a weakly tone how he was doing at work. Lu Juve admitted that he noticed some oddities. Some numbers did not coincide with previous records. but having counted several times, he could not understand what was the matter. Mao Ke thoughtfully suggested that he might just worry too much. But the young man did not try to make excuses. Knowing the manager of Zheng, it was really possible to suspect something was amiss. The hero invited her to try pork guts. They smelled so tasty. But at that moment, the visitor approached the cooks and said that there is something in a dish under the name of 9 intestinal revolutions, and it should be informed to customers about this. Lu Yue was worried because he was told this when he almost reached his portion. Mao Ke was surprised to ask what was talking about and why people say that there was something in the intestines. Lu Yue, wiping himself with a napkin, noticed that she better not know this. Meanwhile, the owner of the institution approached the table and asked why the noise rose. The insulted visitor said that pork guts could not be served like that. But the owner objected that his restaurant was an excellent service, and no one had the right to slander the institution. But the man insisted that the evidence was obvious. Mao Ke watched the unfolding scene and asked what was the matter. The visitor said that the guts were not properly cleared and demanded either to return the money or prepare for the proceedings with the Consumer Association. The owner categorically disagreed. He stated that this dish was not even from his restaurant. At that moment, a man came up behind and grabbed his shoulder. Lu Yue, with a slight smile, asked if this was true, because he also ordered a portion of pork intestines. The guy was clearly angry if the charges are correct. The owner must pay compensation in double size. Feeling that in front of him a person who is better not to argue with, the owner refrained with rudeness, but he still insisted that his restaurant did not do this, and this is simply impossible. Lu Yue wanted to understand why the owner was so confident in his innocence. The unfortunate man admitted that he would tell everything. Their pork is made of tofu. She is vegetarian, so there can be nothing forbidden in it. However, immediately another wave of criticism fell upon the owner. People were indignant that they were selling fake meat and demanded to return the money. Lu Juve sat in his place and noticed that the scammers stumbled upon the seller of false meat. Mao Ke said that it was disrespectful. In her time for such a divine punishment. The next moment, the girl with pleasure leaned back in the chair and took a deep breath. The young lady said that be that as it may, the wontons were tasty, and they should not be angry with them. But unexpectedly, Lu Yue dawned. Now he realized that Zheng started. Probably his strategy was similar. Replace good goods with bad ones. The next day, the young man arrived at the office and continued to work with concentration. Jen approached his brother Lu and noticed that he was still understanding the documents. Juve replied that he signed them and sent them to the supplier, after which he asked, "Was it really wrong?" The manager grabbed his head. It was terrible, but he assumed that it would happen. Then Zhen was then covered with later and confusedly admitted that this was completely his fault. He only now realized that the documents had an error. The old prices were indicated. If Lu Yue signed them, then the company will incur huge losses of millions. Employees stared at Zhen, a colleague, puzzled. Made a mistake in some documents. At that moment, Guo Xiaonan entered the room, and taking advantage of the universal confusion, asked what was the matter. But suddenly the villain felt a burning pain after a recent incident in the elevator. Zhen frightenedly asked what happened, how Mr. Jiyu feels, and whether everything was in order with him. Lu Yue with a slight smile asked what Jiyu was doing like that, since he looked so strange. Guo Xiaonan angrily noted that recently the company has incurred losses. The issue of employees' prizes has not been resolved, and now Lu Yue also made a mistake. The colleagues looked at each other among themselves. It was terrible news. Will there be no bonuses? And all this is because of his brother Lu. Gu Xiaonan said that since Lu Yue is now the official representative of President Lin, he should explain everything. The guy said that the documents sent to the supplier contained the right prices, so there would be no problems. The employee added that he had already sent them by mail, and this can be checked. Jen looked into the phone and was forced to admit that prices really correspond to reality. With a slight smile, Lu Yue noted that this mistake was almost worth them to all the prizes. And the manager Jen must explain how this happened. The colleague asked for forgiveness from his brother Lu, and admitted that he was littered with work, and therefore he was mistaken. Then Jen with difficulty squeezed out the words of gratitude for the fact that Lu Yue noticed a mistake in time, and saved the company. However, Gu Xiaonan immediately stated that this mistake had no colossal significance, because in the end, nothing terrible happened. Rising from his place, the hero turned to Mr. Gu. If he feels bad, he could go to rest. With these words, the young man came closer and put his hands on his shoulders. The next second, still smiling, Lu Juve gently put the villain. Gu Xiaonan felt acute pain. His wounds had not yet healed. Lu Yue noticed that not everything is so smooth. He had a question. How the company's account, including employees' awards, was at Guoshao Nanya. Now everyone understood why their prizes suddenly disappeared. A tense atmosphere reigned in the room. Gu Xiaonan trembled in fear and said that he did not understand what it was about, and first hears about this money. He added that he is invested in the company for the sake of Mao Ke, and he does not care about such trifles. But when Guo Xiaonan realized that no one believes him, he stated that he had now realized what was the matter. After that, the guy sharply pointed to Zhen and said that it was a manager. He transferred the company's money to his account to create the appearance of a lack of funds for salaries, and was going to shift all the blame to Lu Yue with the help of fake documents. Zheng trembled in horror, while Guo Xiaonan continued to blame. According to him, the villain was going to configure everyone back after Lu Zhuve. He was his strategy. Lu Yue with irony noticed that Guo Xiaonan was too kind, since he could not stay away when they accused the innocent. Meanwhile, Guo Xiaonan, with difficulty restraining anger, thought that this guy would regret that he had stood in his way. General anger fell upon the unfortunate Zhen, who looked back in panic at his colleagues. Lu Yue with contempt noticed that friends themselves knew what to do. The next moment, the sounds of struggle were heard. Colleagues brutally dealt with Clome. Suddenly the phone rang. The hero looked at the screen. Who could be? SMS came from Mao Ke. The lady reported that it was already noon and she was very hungry. The young man remembered that today they were going for dinner to her family. Some time passed. The last preparations took place in the estate of the Lin family. Lin Wei put on a strict costume. The maid informed the master that everyone was ready. The guests have already arrived, and dinner can be served. The next moment, Mao Ke and Lu Juve. The guys looked around on the threshold. Lu Juve thoughtfully noted that this is an interesting sight. A family dinner looks pretty curious. However, Mao Ke looked displeased. Was her family not so rich? It is completely incomprehensible why there is not a single glass of cola, such a delicious drink. Soon, Lin Wei approached the guys and said that he was glad to see Mao Ke. His grandmother was very worried that she would not come. For a few moments, they silently looked at each other. Mao Ke was surprised to look at the stranger. The guy was slightly surprised, noticing her silence. Is she really going to be so detached with her brother? Lu Yue bowed and said that President Lin has recently feels bad and has not yet recovered after the accident. The young man introduced himself as an assistant to Mao Ke, accompanying her everywhere. Lin Wei noticed that since the assistant is present, you can drink a glass of red wine. He added that soon they will have an important acquaintance with representatives of different groups. And Mao Ke, as a representative of the family, should make sure that everything will be successful. Mao Ke was surprised to ask who this person is. Because she sees him for the first time, Lu Yue said that it was her brother, although it is unknown whether he was his own or not. Despite the fact that the guy is not yet 30, he is already heading the external relations of the Lin Group. The company founded by Mao Ke is just one of the many subsidiaries of Lin Wei. However, the girl admitted that all this sounds boring. She does not like such events. In any case, the drink in the hands of Mao Ke looked very attractive. His aroma attracted her, and she decided to taste it. However, the next moment I realized that it was alcohol. For some reason it turned out to be too strong. Lu Yue, embarrassed, noted that modern alcohol production technologies have improved significantly, and at the same time, a degree increased. Mao Ke looked at a friend in surprise. Is there really no cola? A friend promised to check. He drew attention to the waitress, carrying a tray with drinks and 2 glasses, and asked if they had a steak. The waitresses looked at each other in surprise, and then reported that the VIPs prefer only high-quality drinks. They turned away and began to whisper, discussing who this strange guy who asks the cola. One noticed that they should not speak too loudly so as not to offend some important person. The girls discussed, and came to the conclusion that this is just an assistant to Mao Ke. Children born from lovers are not welcome in the line of Lin. The guy's ear came to talk about the fact that today, it is planned to announce the future marriage of Mao Ke with the representative of the Pan family. In rich families, useless people do not tolerate and everyone should benefit. Now Lu Yue understood what fate was destined for his boss, Lin Mao Ke. Suddenly he turned around and noticed that Mr. Pan was sitting next to Mao Ke at the table. He noticed that the higher the woman rises along the career ladder, the less valuable it becomes. His opponent noted that such a statement sounds too rude and suggested just a drink. Mao Ke heard Pan tried to prove his point of view, claiming that the lady should use her appearance in order to find a profitable husband. In the end, this would benefit the line of Lin. Lin Wei asked if Mr. Pan had someone in mind, because he was single and probably already chose the candidacy. Pan sighed and said that at the moment he was not up to this. Last month, his father's 12th wife escaped with a large amount of money. Rising, he added that it was not worth worrying. His father is only 60. He is in his prime and can still have several children. The young man always told him that children born from women of low origin need no one, no matter how beautiful their mother is. But in Mao Ke, the blood of the line is flowing. So perhaps she is not so bad. Approaching the girl, he asked her opinion on this score. Lu Yue took a breath. The heads of the largest companies in the city gathered here, and the insult of one of them could turn into a disaster. But looking at the frightened and complete hatred of Mao Ke's face, he discarded all doubts. With a predatory smile, Pan approached the girl, saying that this was a real shame. The next moment, Lu Yue deftly grabbed his hand and turned sharply. Pan screamed in horror, accusing him of an attempt. He immediately called for help. Mao Ke watched a brawl in bewilderment, not understanding how a friend was going to protect her. But Lu Yue was confident in his abilities. The stronger the enemy's energy, the more interesting the battle. And he could no longer wait for the denouement. Pan waved his hands, trying to understand where this madman came from. He was clearly not in himself, and it is not known what to expect from him. However, the young man said with a smile that he was only an assistant to President Lin and rendered a service to the master. But the angry Pan did not want to listen to him and said that Lu Yue should explain himself. Otherwise, the consequences would be serious. The young man calmly replied that he was a little versed in traditional medicine and noticed the problem with Mr. Pan's right hand. In the future, she could lead to serious consequences, so he decided to help. The enemy grinned incredulously, deciding that the guy was simply twisting. To make sure, he called the bodyguard, a native of a family who was engaged in Chinese medicine in a row. The guy's name was Gao Li. Pan ordered him to inspect Lu Yue and check if he himself needs to be raised, but he replied that he was now inappropriate. Lu Yue fearlessly looked at the opponents and suggested not to speak nonsense. If they want to fight, then let them start. After a moment, Gao Li rapidly reduced the distance, confident in his victory. In his opinion, the enemy was weak. He did not have enough strength. His breath was shot down, and the reaction was slowed down. However, when he was about to strike, Lu Yue deftly dodged. The next moment, the young man squeezed his hand into his fist and admitted that he was not too good in the fight. The enemy felt a powerful blow, which made his body shudder. The strong man collapsed exhaustingly to the ground. Pan was at a loss. As possible, it was not part of his plans. After all, this is the personal bodyguard of his father, the third in terms of cultivation. The villain trembled with fear. At the next table, they noticed that cultivators of the third level, a rarity in the city, their units. Perhaps this young man is one of them. Meanwhile, a system notification appeared before Lu Yue. He received a rejuvenation medicine for several martial arts and cultivators caused by shock. Suddenly, Uncle Lin came in and asked what was happening here. Lin Wei explained that the accompanying Mao Ke was fighting with the bodyguards of Mr. Pan. Uncle became furious. This girl became more reckless. Pan, covered by horror, appealed for help. Are they really treating guests? Uncle Lin hastened to reassure him, promising to figure it out. But Pan said that there could be no talk of a marriage union. Mao Ke understood the thoughts of Lu Yue. The young man wanted to extract maximum benefits from the situation. The hero started up. Her insight left no doubt. Lu Yue looked at her with an innocent look and noticed that he simply could not stay away when they insulted the girl. However, his stretched smile raised doubts to the young lady, and she did not believe. Uncle Lin, with arrogance, stated that their family does not care about its low origin, because she received everything that she has. She received thanks to them. Lu Yue quietly whispered to his girlfriend that this man is probably the oldest in the Lin family, but he had not met him before. Meanwhile, the man continued, the line of Lin privileged people, and now they have humiliated them because of Mao Ke. She must personally apologize to Mr. Pan. But the young man calmly replied that he would figure it out with these bastards. Suddenly, Mao Ke came ahead. She noticed that Uncle Lin imagines herself noble, but in fact she was simply afraid of someone else's opinion. Then, with anger in her voice, she added, they betray their ancestors, bring down the descendants and look for all the benefits, so they can't tell them about education. Uncle Lin trembled, not finding suitable words to answer it. Mao Ke, sparkling with his eyes, added that he did not stay long, and if he has complaints, let him save them for his grave. In the next instant, the man collapsed to the ground, painfully knocking at the same time with his whole body. Lu Yue watched in a daze. It turns out that his girlfriend was also a master of word. Uncle Lin, having come to his senses, angrily stated that Mao Ke crossed all the borders. However, the girl remained calm. If he finished, she was about to leave. Lin angrily stated that he would take her everything that the Lin family gave, and she would live in poverty. When they headed for the exit, one of those present called them. Having bowed, he noticed that perhaps he was familiar with Lu Yuve. Despite his young age, the hero has outstanding skill. It would be interesting to find out who his teacher with such wonderful techniques. The guy noted that the world of martial arts is complicated and should not go into details, because everyone understands everything. Suddenly, Lin Wei approached them, who explained that dear guests did not want to offend anyone, and the support of martial arts masters is extremely important for business. In the meantime, Lu Yuwei answered the question posed by him, although he did not want to admit it. But in fact, the guy did not have a teacher. However, he mentioned that he received several valuable tips from strong masters. Lin Wei said that today they are not going to discuss business issues, because brother Lu and Mao Ke have a rather unusual relationship. Throughout his life, his sister brought home only one person. And, of course, Lin Wei was calm, knowing that such a talented gentleman was looking after her. The guests noticed that before this guy wanted to marry her, but now he is trying to establish communication with her. How mean it is. Having lost patience, Mao Ke sharply stated that it was time to end this empty conversation. Farewell had already taken place. Lin Wei waved his hand, not without regret agreeing to let them go. Meanwhile, a maid approached one of the gentlemen, saying that he had a phone call. Mao Ke was alert. Her gaze became harsh and very angry. She ordered the girl to approach. The maid was frightened. Was something wrong? Mao Ke unexpectedly stated that she needed 5 boxes of cola. The maid was confused, but the angry mistress demanded an immediate execution of the order. The cola should deliver to every residence, the store and the Lin family company, and she will follow this personally. Lin Wei was surprised at her words, while the unfortunate servant looked depressed. Mao Ke suggested that the maid herself told everything, because she loves to gossip so much. Lin Wei realized that his sister overheard their conversation and was very angry. The young man ordered the maid to fulfill the order of the lady until tomorrow. Otherwise, she would be fired. Soon, Mao Ke and Lu Juve found themselves in a small cafe. They served barbecue and many delicious dishes. The girl with pleasure noticed that this is a great choice for a late dinner. Mao Ke enjoyed the unforgettable taste of cola, which she really liked. She noticed that the cold drink would be even tastier. Lu Juve noticed that beer goes well with street food, and suggested trying. The lady looked at the bottle in surprise, wondering what kind of drink it was. The friend explained that this was a kind of alcohol, but he seemed completely unlike what she had tried before. Having made several sips, Mao Ke felt an unusual taste. It was not at all like drinks from her era, but somewhat reminiscent of a steak. However, she stated that she would not exchange her for anything, and did not agree to such an exchange. Lu Yue looked at the neck of his bottle. If you drink right, it will be like an indirect kiss. He decided to take a new tube and got up from his seat. Meanwhile, Mao Ke from the edge of her ear heard the conversation of several men who threatened the girl. They reminded that her family owed a large sum and insisted that she would have to pay. Mao Ke turned around listening to this unusual conversation, which was very tense. The bandit proposed to discuss this upstairs in a more disposal. One of those present tried to object that he should not resort to violence, but the bastard, shrouded by anger, immediately kicked him out with shame and did not listen to him. Mao Ke thoughtfully took several sips, listening to what was happening. The unfortunate lady begged to let her go, assuring that she was not going to go anywhere. However, the bandits were adamant. In fact, the young beauty had no choice. They assured that if she was obediently, he would just drink with them, and nothing terrible would happen. But suddenly a bottle flew into the head of one of the bandits, forcing him to freeze for a few moments. Puzzled, the guys turned to see who did this and stared at this man with surprise. Mao Ke indifferently noticed that they were going to drink. So what was the problem? The bastards approached the girl and were indignant at where she had the impudence of this. However, the next moment, one of them dismissed, saying that it doesn't matter. Later, he himself would invite her to drink. Everything happened instantly. The girl deftly grabbed the bandit and he screamed in horror, begging for help. Meanwhile, she had already neutralized the second, who lost consciousness from the wound. His partner cried out in a panic, calling the girl a monster. Mao Ke grinned contemptuously and asked if the bastard had a desire to drink with her. She explained that now their meridians are blocked by energy. The liquid in their body will move in the opposite direction, and the internal energy would begin to accumulate, not finding a way out. Ultimately, you can explode from this tension, but it will be what they deserve. The unfortunate gangster screamed in panic, begging to call the police. At that moment, Lu Juve approached Mao Ke. He asked in surprise if her behavior was so angry. The lady calmly replied that she simply decided to teach them a good lesson. The saved girl said that the arrogant lenders threatened her and tried to take away by force. Mao Ke could not just stand aside. Their conversation was interrupted by the owner of the kiosk with the barbecue, reminding what food needs to be paid. Soon the police arrived, her cars blocked with signals. Eyewitnesses said that they saw how the lady brutally beat several people, and even broke the bone with one movement. Lu Yue noticed that the police arrived too fast. The girls stared in surprise at officials. The hero asked the victim to act in their defense and tell the truth, but she was scared and refused. If the matter comes to publicity, everything can end badly for her, so the young lady quickly ran away. Mao Ke, however, looked calm. She said that she should not worry if the girl wants to leave. Let him leave. Lu Yue did not agree. In the eyes of the police, Mao Ke looked like the instigator of the fight, and it was disturbed by. The lady shrugged, saying that she had already encountered such situations, and asked if they would now have a conversation with the police. But Lu Yue decided differently. He sharply grabbed her hand and said that he was not going to give up so easy. The next moment, he pulled her along, and they rushed to run. The seller, remaining bitterly in place of bitterness, realized that he had not been paid. Having reached the big bridge, Lu Yue took a breath. He noted that the training was not in vain, otherwise he would not have enough strength for such a breakthrough. The young man noticed that, it seems, Mao Ke was not at all a villain in real life. The girl asked in surprise why he thinks so. Lu Yue replied that he was judging only by what she is now and how he acts. Those who are trying to denigrate her like to tear out words from context and remain silent. Rumors are always a plexus of truth and lies, turning into one large theory. If Mao Ke does not explain anything and does not try to justify himself, this does not make her a bad person. But if the situation is aggravated, whether she will become the eyes of all the villain that's sowing chaos. The lady looked thoughtfully at the stars. So much time passed. Lu Yue did not know the details of her past life, but decided from this moment to follow her every action. Perhaps he will soon reveal the whole truth for them and gain a complete picture of what is happening. Suddenly, Mao Ke approached and looked into his face. The guy greeted her gaze puzzled. The girl suggested that he wants to return to her world with her, and it seemed very curious to her. However, Lu Yue was confused and did not understand why the empress behaved so strangely. Mao Ke clarified that it was not so old and suggested calling her Jinyang. Lu Yue hesitantly pulled away, feeling something unusual in her behavior. Soon they got home, and the young man noted that they were lucky. The dwelling was very close. Looking around, the young man noticed that Seishan's brother seemed to be not at home. The next second he was alerted by another. His friend forgot to remove his things. Having offered Mao Ke to take off their shoes, Lu Yue took up cleaning. After that, the young man asked what she had in mind, calling herself Jinyang. The lady explained that her physiological body has long been destroyed, and her soul is only partially connected with this body. She has no direct connection with this witch. For hundreds of years she was sharpened inside, and if Mao Ke had not loosened control, having drunk, the empress would not have seen daylight. Having knelt down, the girl asked Lu Yue to give her a minute to explain. She admitted that if not for him, it would be impossible to free her, and now the beauty in front of him was in non-pay duty. Since childhood, she was engaged in the creation of weapons and is ready to pass on her knowledge to him. Unlike a clumsy and naive witch, Jinyang was smart. However, Lu Yue still could not get rid of embarrassment. His friend looked much younger. Inhaled deeply, the hero asked how he could help her in this situation. In response, the girl, without saying a word, unbuttoned the dress, which was even more stunned. She showed the seal, explaining that her destruction would require a huge supply of energy and knowledge of special equipment. Although this will not completely free it, the seal will significantly loosen the restrictions. Lu Yue, having cleared his throat a bit, offered to try. Regardless of whether his lady would thank him or not, he is just happy to help. Mao Ke obediently closed her eyes, and he put his hand forward. Suddenly, gathered in spirit, he hit her on the shoulder. The girl screamed and fell. The separation of personalities could be switched in this way. At that moment, they knocked on the gate. Among those who came was Lin Wei. The servant who opened the door said that they had to warn them. The master would not be able to attend the banquet tonight. Lin Wei asked not to perceive his words incorrectly, of course. They did not come because of this. Master Van just arrived from Zhejiang, and today's banquet was arranged in his honor. However, a sudden message that he could not be present caused them anxiety for his health, so they decided to visit him. The lady assured that the master is in perfect order, but the lady had just returned, which means now the wrong time. The next moment, the door slammed right in front of the guy. He did not even have time to convey the best wishes to the master Van. Young people looked angry. The old man took everything to heart too close. But his influence in the capital was huge. Even the martial arts sect did not dare to do anything. Learning about his arrival, there was nothing to do here. Now they will have to try to establish relations with the Van family. They left, discussing what happened. Everyone was curious who was this Lu Yue, who became the son-in-law of the family. Meanwhile, the girl reported to the master that she sent uninvited guests. The old man only laughed. He could meet them, but preferred to spend the evening with his beloved granddaughter, Xiao Fen. However, the lady reproachfully noticed that her grandfather was treating her poorly. Van objected that this was a punishment. There was nothing to tell how she lost to some youth. It was a shame. She should practice a couple of thousand times. Xiaofen noticed that Lu Yue is really unusual, and grandfather would understand this when she sees him. Morning came. Mao Ke with difficulty opened her eyes, feeling unimportant. Lu Yue explained that these are the consequences of modern alcohol. This happens. Looking in the mirror, the girl found a bump on her forehead. Embarrassed, the young man suggested that she could hit something. Then he offered a glass of water to facilitate her condition. The guy did not suspect that ancient people had such a low tolerance to alcohol, only half a bottle, and the result is, Mao Ke explained that this was not the point. She just had not experienced such sensations for a long time, being in a mortal body. Then she began to absorb true qi in order to get rid of intoxication. Lu Yue wondered how difficult it is to be an empress, especially if Jinyang is also inside her. This remark was surprised by Mao Ke. She asked how he found out about her. The young man replied that she herself told him about her origin, about what was the spirit concluded in this body, and asked for help. Now he was interested in what the spiritual artifact was. Mao Ke, with a slight smile, asked, was it all that she was talking about? The friend was slightly surprised, but confirmed that it was exactly so. The young beauty explained that the spiritual artifact is an object with a soul. A weapon with a soul is 10 times stronger than usual. Jinyang is really the spirit that she enclosed in the subject. Lu Juve looked discouraged. He was interested in where the spirit was taken from. This phenomenon seemed mysterious, and it was difficult to imagine how a person to live with such a creature. Mao Ke explained that bones are removed from a living person, extracting the bone marrow and tormented until the spirit is separated from the body. In demonic sects, there are ominous rituals and texts. She was curious if the friend regrets that she helped her, because she, the empress, who took the lives of countless people. Lu Yue breathed, realizing that he had made the right choice. He knew that Mao Ke did not need his life, but what Jinyang was seeking remained a mystery. Mao Ke, having thought a little, admitted that the friend acted correctly, choosing the salvation of his own life. However, he did not leave the feeling that she was deceiving him. If Jinyang was so badly affected, or her dignity should not be even higher. Meanwhile, Mao Ke found that her arms and shoulders hurt her, as if they were hit with a heavy object. Lu Yue did not go into details, and only noticed that he had warned not to spend too much time on the phone. Perhaps the guy could help her with a massage. Suddenly, Seishin appeared on the threshold, noticing that the door was open. He walked around the room and invited his friend to eat a little. The next moment, his attention switched to Mao Ke. For several moments, everyone was silently silent. The girl turned around and looked at the young man with an impassive look. Seishin decided that they were already having breakfast and was about to leave. But then, he began to shake Lu Yue, indignantly stating that he asked him not to do vile adult things in front of his dear Vivian. Lu Yue recalled that he had already said to remove her, but his friend did not. Seishin retorted that it was his girlfriend, and did not see the problem in sitting in the living room. Mao Ke, meanwhile, tried the dough, noting his softness and how it melts in the mouth. Suddenly, Seishin realized what was happening. Did their boss Lu Yue really have it home? He confirmed that it was really so. She got drunk at a public event, and he had to bring her home to sober up. Seishin noticed that if it is a boss Lin, then you can take all the cookies. She probably really liked it. Then he began to rummage in the closet, stating that he wanted to get something. Soon I found the desired, a cake butterfly, behind which I stood in line for 3 days. A strange smell emanated from the collar. Lu Yue could not believe that his friend put the cakes in a bunch of dirty socks, so no one was doing. Seishin justified that they were washed. Mao Ke was surprised to watch their dispute and came to the conclusion that this was just a palmier layer. The young man tried to push his friend out the door, but he insisted that perhaps Boss Lin would like. Then the young man mentioned the popular internet celebrity Li Ziyan, whose opening the event was difficult to get tickets. She recently signed a contract with Lin's family. Lu Yue skeptically reacted, recalling how a friend spent the entire credit card on Strimmersha, only to find out that she lives with a top athlete. Remembering this, a friend sadly stirred his tears with fast-cooking rice. Seishin assured that now everything is different, and he sincerely supports the girl, appreciating her without waiting for something in return. Then he handed the phone to a friend to show her photo. What kind of lady, really? On the screen was an exquisite and attractive lady, from which it was impossible to look away. Lu Yue for a moment was speechless. His heart pounded frantically. He promised to do everything to help a friend fulfill a dream. Some time passed. Mao Ke carefully made inscriptions on the signs. Seishin was surprised to notice that the boss was fond of drawing talismans. Lu Yue explained that she was on Mount Lunhu and is now pretending to Taoist, but should not delve into it, and it is better to remember the need to wash socks. Mao Ke handed the friend of the talisman and offered to invest her inner energy in them. The young man was surprised to take the sheet and asked what it was. The girl explained that the talisman collects and accumulates qi energy. Since Lu Yue is waiting for an increase, this talisman may be useful. The guy hardly believed that this was true. Would he really overtake a lightning? Like a teacher? Mao Ke assured that he was at a suitable level, and there would be no disasters. Then she got up and said that in the coming days she needed to cultivate alone, but a friend should not relax. Lu Yue was happy. Finally, he had several free days. It was a great opportunity to help Seishin's brother fulfill his dream. Soon a crowd gathered around a large stand, looking forward to the star. The young man held in his hands a ticket allegedly prepared for Mao Ke, and explained its absence with urgent matters. Jen waved goodbye, and Seishin could not believe his happiness. His friend, a real brother, not only took out a ticket, but also provided a place in the front row. As a sign of gratitude, Seishin promised to treat him with a layer of palmyre. When the guys arrived, they noticed that the whole event was taking place on the street. Seishin explained that this is part of the initiative to support urban harmony, and specially for this, Yan invited the team captain. Soon, the beauty went on stage and greeted the audience good-naturedly. She thanked everyone for their support. Applause came in response. Seishin admired her pretty, but his friend noted that one appearance is not enough. A friend objected that while a person retains children's immediacy, everything is in order. But Lu Yue recalled that the weight of more than 50 kilograms is no longer considered children's. Meanwhile, Yan said that the city authorities should not only support suppliers, but also work together to improve the urban environment. Then she suddenly took off her shoes and warned that the consequences would follow for ignoring the advice. In confirmation of her words, the young lady stepped on the assistant, announcing a severe punishment. Seishin watched this with enthusiasm, and expressed a desire to experience the same punishment. Soon the crowd picked up his enthusiasm, and many began to ask Yan to punish them. Everyone wanted to be in the place of this type that was subject to punishment by Yan. But suddenly Lu Yue was alert. A threat was clearly hidden in what was happening. The next moment, the assistant sharply grabbed the girl by the leg, preventing her from escaping. Yan realized that this was not part of the planned performance. Lu Juve threw Seishin up to help him, intervene and rectify the situation. Meanwhile, the villain grabbed Yan and said that he had been waiting for this moment for a very long time. The girl threw the attacker with dexterity, and at the same moment, Seishin collapsed right at him. For several seconds they exchanged tense glances, after which Seishin struck the enemy with a fist in his face. The crowd was furious, because this man dared to touch Yan, which was absolutely unacceptable. People rushed at the villain. At this time, the lady hastily approached Lu Juve to meet. The young lady also wanted to thank him for the timely intervention. The girl admitted that she heard everything that the fans said earlier, and if not for him, it was not known how it would end. Lu Yue, embarrassed, noted to himself that his irresistible charm did not go unnoticed. He also drew attention to the tenderness of her hands. The crowd noticed that the guy was holding Yan by the hand, and immediately there were indignant cries with the demand to let the girl go. Lu Yue, with horror, realized that the fans incorrectly interpreted the situation. The attempt to twist the hand failed, and the noise in the crowd grew stronger. Jinyang noticed his confusion and emphasized that, probably, her strength was much more than he thought. Lu Yue suddenly realized that she could read his thoughts, and tried to understand why the lady was behaving like that, if they have no conflict. Yan replied that with his skills he should be able to cope with the situation. The young man hardly believed that she was really ready to go so far. Meanwhile, the crowd was inexorably approaching, out of breath. The young man rushed forward, intending to escape,